Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I am your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method. And I am also known as the queen of cold calling. And our very special guest today is Tom Jackobs. He is the impact pilot at the Jackobs Effect Incorporated. And Tom has been through a few things in his 30 plus years of being an entrepreneur. He's had more failures than successes, but he wouldn't have it any other way. And in 2017, he sold his fitness business, which he had owned for 9 years, to become the impact pilot, helping entrepreneurs generate more income through better sales conversion strategy and using stories to sell. Tom has a BFA degree in theater from DePaul University in Chicago. He holds his private pilot license for single-engine airplanes. He is scuba certified, and he has licenses for land. He drives a car. Sea, he's scuba certified, and air. He has a pilot's license, which he feels will come very much in handy during the apocalypse. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's quite the mouthful.
Quite the mouthful, but I enjoyed the introduction. It's good to know that during the apocalypse, you will be fine. So
I can fly over and pick you up if needed.
Okay, that works for me. So let's begin at the beginning and tell all of our listeners, share with us, if you would, how did you become the impact pilot? What's the backstory?
Yeah, so really it started when I first opened my fitness business, which was in 2008. And I'd just come out of 12 years in corporate work. So I was a logistics manager, managing millions of dollars in freight. And now I wanted to open up a small business. And of course, I thought, well, if I can handle millions of dollars in freight, I can certainly handle a small business. And I couldn't be more wrong in that assumption, because there's so many different things that you have to do in owning a small business. The primary thing that I struggled with from day one was sales. And within 6 months, because I had such a poor sales process, I didn't have any process really, I almost went broke, because I didn't know how to convert interested people into paying clients. And through that pain, I did a lot of self-study. I hired a coach. I did everything that I needed to do to really overcome that shortcoming. And within the next 6 months of owning that business, I quadrupled our income the next year, all because I learned how to sell. Because I went from $100,000 the first year to $400,000 the second year in gross income, and all because I learned the process of selling. And that's kind of what brought me to become the impact pilot, to share that knowledge to really heart-centered practitioners and heart-centered people that want to sell at a higher level without feeling like they're salesy, being authentic in their sales.
So that's a very interesting story. And I'm curious, how did you flip the switch in your head to go from being uncomfortable with sales to becoming comfortable? Because I see this every day with our clients that come in, solopreneurs, business owners, that they just think selling is really icky and I don't want to be a salesperson. And if that's your starting place, where do you go from there? So I'm curious how you flipped that switch.
Well, one, I had to, because literally my bank account was almost negative. because I wasn't bringing in the type of revenue that I needed to sustain the business. So it was a do or die situation. And anybody that's been in kind of those situations knows that you just do what you have to do. Now, you could go through all the motions and kind of do okay. However, I really excelled at sales because I learned that it was a process. Step one, step two, step three, step four, cha-ching, the sale is made. And when you follow the same process over and over and over again, you're going to get the same result. Hopefully, it's a good process, so you get the same really great result. And as an introvert, selling, of course, didn't come naturally to me. But what I found is that introverts really make the best sellers because we can follow a process, and we don't care if we're up that day or down on the day. It's just follow the process, ask the right questions, and get the sale.
Well, I love what you're saying because I have been on a mission for years. There is the very insidious myth of the born salesperson, that somehow there are these people out there that they're just born and they know what to do and they know what to say, and that's a myth. So
I full-on myth.
Yeah. So I love what you are saying about process. But I am still curious about the shift in your head. I mean, I know you said it was do or die, and I get when it's do or die, you have to take action. But what was the thought process from I can't do this to I can do this?
Yeah. So it was so I hired a coach to help me with the process and understanding sales and fitness, which isn't any different than any other sales, whether it's B2C, B2B. Sales is sales. It's the process, ask the right questions, and then present your solution. And I always say that sales is super easy because you're solving somebody's problem. You have to know what the problem is first. So the switch came when I made my first big sale after learning the process. And so to give you some context, before I learned how to sell, or the process of selling, my sales process was basically that somebody would come into the studio, the fitness center. I'd usually be working out with a client. So I'd be interrupted from my work, which I loved to do. And so I'd go up to the prospect who just walked in. And I was like, yeah, what do you want? Like literally, that was my rapport building. And then they would say, oh, I'm kind of interested in working out. And I was like, okay, well, it's $60 a session. If you buy 10 sessions, you get the 11th session for free. And so it was all on price. There's no like understanding what the problem is, not trying to solve the problem. Just here's the price. Do you want it or not? And then typically they would say, well, let me think about it. And I'd hand them a card and say, well, when you think about it, give me a call. So there's no wonder that I couldn't sell anything. And then once I learned the process that, one, rapport building, two, ask the right questions in the right order to uncover what the problem is. You kind of rehash what the problem is so that they can hear you. And then you present your solution and then close the sale. And if you screw all that up, you got to do some objection handling. And once I kind of got that all scripted out, understood kind of the psychology of getting people to understand that they wanted to, get healthier and get fit, then it was basically game over for anybody that came in as a prospect, because I was selling at 90% close rate from then on, because it was a process I followed.
Exactly. You're dealing with, I'm making finger quotes here, but you're dealing with warm leads. They walked into a fitness center. They probably are pretty interested in something having to do with fitness.
Right.
So if you handle it right, it's very likely that you'll close the sale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also really like what you had to say about scripts, because lots of times I hear people say, oh, I don't want to use a script because I don't want to be phony. And I agree.
Big eye roll.
We don't want you to be, we don't want you to be phony. We agree.
Yes.
But having that script, from my point of view, just enables you to be your very best self ever, because you're prepared. I'd like to hear your take.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I say scripting, it's really more of a conversation flow than anything else. But I always had my key questions, which kind of I've simplified it now into what, why, what, why. And that's the questioning phase. So what, why, what, why? What are your goals, or what do you want to accomplish? Why is that important to you? What have you done before, or what are you doing now to try to get to that goal? And then why is now the right time to make a change? And with those four base questions, then you're able to uncover what the real problem is for the client, and then solve it with your presentation, with your solution, if you can. And if you can't, great, you tell them you can't solve their problem, and make a referral on to somebody else.
So I'm also wondering, since you were a fitness trainer, and I'm making an assumption here, Tom, but being in the fitness world, being an athlete, being a dancer, having a theater background, in all of those areas, there's a lot of process involved. You don't just run out on stage and do the play.
No.
But that fitness background didn't help you understand process related to something else.
Correct. What it did for me is really, I understood process, but in my mind, the way that I was raised and just all interactions with salespeople up into that point, it always seemed like, well, this is sales. This isn't a process. But once I was able to identify the process of selling, then I was like, oh, ding dong, the light went off. I was like, oh yeah, it's a process. And with any process, if you repeat it enough times, then it's going to be successful for you.
Absolutely. Then you know what works, and you can tweak it and make it even better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I always like to do is, back on the scripting piece, is just having that flow. And even to this day, 20 years of selling, I still, when I do a sales call, I have my questions lined out, just so if anything happens, if we go off track, I can always bring it back to, okay, I was at this point during the sales conversation. Now I need to go on to this next point, so I don't miss anything. And the times that I've not had my script in front of me, I've generally not made the sale.
Yeah, I think there's a really big disconnect when we use the word script. Sometimes people think that means that it's something you're going to read word for word, no matter what the other person says.
Oh, I hope not.
And we both hope not. It's really more like a guide, a plan of action, knowing the information you need to gather. And that makes selling a lot more predictable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's more than customizable for the person that you're speaking to.
Yes. And I would imagine that if they had certain health-related goals, that was one direction. If they just wanted to get bigger and stronger, that was another direction.
Correct. Yeah, the presentation is customized to then what their goals are. Right. But the number one thing that I also learned during that process, and I've trained other fitness entrepreneurs on selling, probably like 1,000 of them to this day, is that salespeople, novice salespeople, believe that they're selling the thing that they're selling. So in fitness, you would be selling the workout, right? That you work out, that's what you're selling. However, that's the complete wrong way of looking at anything that you're selling, because especially in health and fitness, what is the one thing most people don't want to do? Work out. That's why we have an obesity problem in America. But if you focus on what the result is, what the end goal is, then you're going to have a much better and much easier way of converting, because now you're understanding what you're really selling is the outcome or the result of working out. So if you sell the result and the outcome, you're going to have a much better result at the end of the day.
The best way that I ever heard this described was Lisa Sasevich. And she said, sell the destination, not the plane. And what most people do is, you're going to get a ticket, and there's going to be curbside check-in, and you're going to get a seat, and there's complimentary water, coffee, and tea, and you can put your luggage under the seat or in the overhead bin. And what you should be selling is, you're going to be laying on a beach with a drink with an umbrella in it, and the sky is blue and the water is warm, and but most people sell the plane.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why they aren't that successful at sales then.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to pause here for a word from our sponsor. But when we come back, Tom, I want to ask you, because I was reading through some of your materials and you talked about being lied to by digital marketers, and why it is important to talk to prospects on the telephone. So that's when we come back. But now we have a word from our sponsor, Salesology, 81 tools to grow your sales and your business faster, more easily, and more profitably. Are you stuck because you can't find the right sales and marketing resources to help you grow your business? Or maybe you're sick of spending hours hunched over your computer, researching and looking for what you need instead of selling and generating revenue. Or maybe you're frustrated and confused because you can't find what you need at an affordable price. Well, never fear, because Salesology, we have you covered. We've done the research, we've vetted all the sales and marketing tools, so you can save hours of work because you no longer have to hunt for what you need. Download 81 tools to grow your sales and your business faster, more easily, and more profitably. It's free. Just click on the link in the show notes. You'll be glad you did. And we are back with my special guest, Tom Jackobs, the impact pilot at the Jackobs Effect Incorporated. So welcome back, Tom.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, so I was reading through some of your materials over the weekend, and something struck me, which is, you said that we have been lied to by digital marketers. So explain, please.
So, I've gone to so many different digital marketing events and speeches and things like that, and done all the reading. And it always seems like all you need to do is post an ad on Google or Facebook or Instagram, and all these leads are going to automatically book on your calendar, and they're going to show up, and you're going to be able to sell. Well, in my experience, that is really far from the truth. You can do all the best marketing in the world. You can get people teed up, but people get busy. They don't fill out the form. They don't answer the phone. They don't get emails. They don't get text messages, whatever. There's all this stuff that happens. If you're not following up with people consistently and persistently, trying to get them to book the appointment with you that they've already said that they wanted, then it's not going to be a very easy go for you if you don't do that follow-up consistently and persistently. Because it takes, on average, 10 touches to get somebody to book an appointment.
Hear, hear. And it's always so interesting to me, the number of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners that do not want to pick up the phone, and they rely on somebody opened an email, and maybe that somebody opening an email is the right person, but maybe they're not. And so could you talk a little bit more about that? What is your process?
Yeah, so it's really warm calling, and you're the queen of cold calling. So this is, in my opinion, it's a lot easier than cold calling, because they've already raised their hand and said, "Hey, I'm kind of interested. Tell me more." And if all you're doing is relying on automation to follow up with that lead, you're probably going to leave 80% on the table, rather than give that 80-20 rule, right? 20% will automatically book, perhaps, but 80% they're interested, but they just didn't take that extra step of booking an appointment with you. So then it's up to you to actually pick up the phone, call them up because they wanted that. They want to book an appointment. They said they did. So it's your duty and obligation to really follow up with that lead at least 10 times. And I do it 12 times over 30 days is kind of our call process for following up on leads for our clients. And what we found, is it takes about 10 on average to get somebody to answer the phone and actually book an appointment.
So is that follow-up all by phone, or are you using email? Are you texting, using social media? What does it look like?
Yeah. So for us, we are voice centric, meaning it all starts with that phone call. If somebody doesn't pick up, then we're going to leave a voicemail. We're going to send a text. And then every once in a while, we'll send an email only to get them to book a time to have a phone call or just engage with us somehow. Now, that shouldn't stop a business from still drip marketing. So that means sending out emails, giving some education or infotainment about what you do so that when you do pick up the phone and call that lead, they're a little bit more pre-educated on what you do. So that conversation becomes a lot easier. So it's a combination of everything because you never know like how somebody's going to react. I'm a texting person. Like you couldn't get me on the phone ever, but if you send me a text, I'll respond to the text. Or you send me a message on social media, I'll respond to that, but not as quickly as I would respond to a text. But phone calls, generally, I don't answer my phone. So you need to have all those different modes to get people.
Exactly. You don't know what modes people will respond to. Although I do find it to be very curious. We are phone centric here at Salesology as well. And we lead with a phone call because you know what? You might actually get the person you want to talk to on the phone, and then you do not need to text them or email them or reach out through social media because you are talking to them.
Right.
And everything else is kind of a fallback.
Yeah. Yeah. And timing is so important on that as well. So what the studies have shown is you need to respond to that lead within 20 minutes of that lead filling out a form on your website or making the first contact. Now, of course, if they do that at 2:00 in the morning, it's not a good idea to reach out to them at 2:00 in the morning. But during normal business hours, if somebody's responding within 20 minutes to a lead coming in, chances are you're going to get them on the phone. And then you don't need to do any of the other follow-up.
It's a huge time saver. Not to mention much more effective to actually have the conversation you want to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was also interested to read where you said that voice confirmed webinars, if you call people that have registered for a webinar and confirm it, and I'm assuming that could be even a voicemail, even if you don't leave them directly, reach them directly, you just leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me. The 4 times is likely to show up. That's what I read.
Yeah. So voicemail alone is not good enough. So it's actually the conversation that you have with a lead that's registered for a webinar. And in that, I'll give you just our secret sauce that we use is we ask a very important question during that confirmation call. It's like, is there anything specific that you'd like to learn on that webinar? Now, what that does is gets that prospect now engaged in the webinar. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I'm interested in XYZ. And you say, oh, I'm going to pass that on to the presenter and he'll be sure to put that into the webinar. So you get the answer to that. And now they're going to be more likely to actually show up to the webinar. Now, voicemail, you can't have that conversation. So voicemail is not as effective as the actual voice confirmation. So that actual interaction with the lead.
So do you have your team calling repeatedly until they reach that person that's registered if they're continually getting voicemail?
Well, that would be a little overkill. So no, we don't do that. So what we generally do, if it's the day before or greater from the webinar. If we've left a voicemail previously on the day of the webinar, we'll make another attempt to try to get them on the phone. But that's generally just a two touch, because it's a lower stakes of the webinar is a lower stakes than, say, an appointment or a live event. So with those, we're going to follow up with people a lot more assertively.
There was a study that was done at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I think it was 2015, where they studied written communication against spoken communication. And written communication was an email, a text, social media post, a letter. And then spoken communication was on the phone, if you're face-to-face with someone. And it included a voicemail. And what they found was, if someone heard you talk, even if it was on a voicemail, they were first of all, they thought you were smarter than if they just got an email. They thought you were smarter. And they were significantly more likely to take action on whatever it is that you were talking about. So we always recommend to our clients that if they can't get the person on the phone, they leave a voicemail, and then of course they call them again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I did my own little study, not on the communication style, but just like the response time and responsiveness of fitness centers across the US. So we did a lookup of 100 fitness centers across the US and just submitted on their website a contact me. So like if they had a form, we would fill out the form and put our name, phone number, email address. And the results were shocking. One, no one called us back within 20 minutes. Not a single person from the 100. And we did the form, filled it out during normal business hours. So it wasn't like it was like 2:00 in the morning. So one, nobody called back within 20 minutes. Only 23 responded at all with even an automated something or other. So that left 77 businesses that got a lead that did nothing with it. That is criminal. And then of the 23, only 5 followed up more than one time, but the max was 3 times. And then they quit.
It's amazing how people shoot themselves in the foot. It's completely amazing. Yeah. Oh, well, if they're interested, they'll call me back.
Oh, no. No, they won't.
No, they won't.
No, they won't. Yeah, but I was guilty of it too. And that's when I really developed that follow-up process in my fitness business, where I actually hired one person dedicated to just following up on leads. And that was a part-time person. I spent a lot of money, on that, but my business grew, exponentially because I had that person following up consistently and persistently with leads.
Yeah. So I know, Tom, you have a gift for our listeners. So would you share details of that gift, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's what I call the 3 keys to doubling sales. So it's a little workbook to help you identify the 3 areas of improvement that are necessary to double sales in the next 6 months. And it's available at my website, tomjacobs.com/3 keys. So it's the number 3 and then keys.
Okay. And for our listeners, if you did not have a chance to write that down quickly, no worries, because we are posting that link in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. And if people want to get in touch with you, Tom, where should they go?
Yeah, so probably the best place is on my website, so tomjacobs.com, and it's TOMJACKOBS.com. And there's a contact us form on there, but I'm also on Instagram, Impact Pilot, and on Facebook as well, and LinkedIn.
Okay. And LinkedIn. And we will post all of those links in the show notes. So if you want to get in touch with Tom, just go to the show notes, click on the link. And if you fill out the contact form, I am willing to bet that somebody is going to contact you right back.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we have been, you have been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales, with my special guest, Tom Jackobs, the impact pilot of Jackobs Effect Incorporated. And if you found value in listening to the podcast today, then think about one business owner or one sales professional, one entrepreneur, somebody that you know that you think might also find value in listening to the podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.